Welcome to our second reflection. At the end of this session, I'll invite you to take some pictures with your phone or camera. But let's think about contemplation, slowing down, and how the camera can help us in this endeavour. Tide is coming in now, and the wind has got up, so I'm sat in a sheltered bay out of the wind, looking back to where we walked in the first session. It's very still here. There's lots of research today that shows slowing down and living in the present, which frees us from worry about tomorrow or the past, is good for our health. Christian monks, of course, and mystics have known this truth throughout the ages. Franciscan monk Richard Rohr says, "In contemplative prayer, we move beyond language to experience God as mystery." Contemplation can sometimes be seen as navel-gazing and doing nothing, but it's really about seeing and accepting our life and recognizing we can only ever live in the present. It's from this place that meaningful change and action can happen. Rohr goes on to say, in contemplation we let go of our need to judge, defend or evaluate, plugging into the mind of Christ which welcomes paradox and knows its true identity in God. He says, during contemplation we come to know that there is no separation between sacred and secular. All is one with divine reality. But it's not easy to do, because so often our instincts are to be busy, and our minds like to distract us, tricking us into thinking their future projections are real. Well, Richard Rohr acknowledges this and says each time we pray, we come with a beginner's mind, true humility, an openness to not knowing, even with our best intentions to remain present to presence. Our habitual patterns of thinking and feeling interrupt and distract. Yet it's the desire that matters, and through our failing we encounter God's grace. He says contemplative prayer is a practice for a lifetime, never perfected, yet always enough. We'll never be good at contemplation, but that's okay. It's our intention which is all that matters. In fact, the Trappist monk Thomas Merton says in his book Seeds of Contemplation that if we think we're good at contemplation, we'd perhaps be well served to practice a bit more humility. As you look out over the bay, there is a real stillness, and there is a stillness in contemplation, but this is different to silence. As I look now, I'm reminded of the words of the psalmist, "Be still and know that I am God." So what does drawing with light, as its literal translation of the word photography, have to do with contemplation? Well, I believe God is doing something amazing within the advent of digital photography. I think we see God at work in people's lives. As a society, we're becoming visual storytellers, and that's very exciting. First thing I think photography does for contemplation is it gives us a path back to creativity, because creativity helps us slow down to notice and look beyond the obvious. Creativity is something Western society has denied for many years, which is tragic. As I mentioned in the first reflection, we're made in the image of a creator God. When we deny our creativity, we are denying the image of God within us. But the amazing thing I see God doing in digital photography is making creativity accessible to those of us who think we perhaps aren't creative. Drawing with light, photography, is a path back to the heart of God. Perhaps some of us think we're not creative because that's what we were told at school. I was told I couldn't draw. Yet we are creative. God has made us that way and given us a path back to celebrating our creativity. But before we consider how drawing with light, how photography may deepen our relationship with God, we need to consider the nature of this art form. Photography may be a creative art, but it's not always had a good track record, and we should be mindful of this. The American philosopher Susan Sontag is harshly critical of photography. She denounces it as a violent act, citing many of the terms associated with the operation of a camera: loading, shooting, aiming, capturing. She condemns it as an aggressive act and the camera as a predatory weapon. She goes on to argue that the taking of a photograph is to appropriate the thing being photographed. By contrast, the contemplative photographer Howard Zier suggests an alternative. He argues we should see pictures as a gift, as in reality we take nothing. Camera simply receives light onto a receptor, which is reflected from a subject. So the notion we take a picture is wrong. The camera can be used, as Sontag argues, but we also have the choice to use it in a different way, as Howard Zier suggests. And when we see pictures as a gift instead of a trophy which is hunted, then we recognize our interconnectedness with all things. With the thing I'm looking at and photographing, I have an interconnectedness. If I'm taking a picture of a tree, I'm reminded that my lungs wouldn't work without that tree. We're surrounded here by water on which all life depends. Images become ours, not mine, when we see them as gift. And I'm caused to slow down and marvel at the gift of life in all its complicatedness, its pain, its joy, and its wonder. So I'd encourage us to open ourselves to cultivate an attitude of receptivity, which is at the heart of contemplation, an openness to what might be given to us through the lens of our cameras today. Not any expectations or prejudgments, simply an openness. For me, creativity leads to contemplation because we learn to be attentive. We learn to be attentive to the world. We see that world through the gift of light. The camera is a tool for attention, attentiveness to creation, to people, to God. When did you last just sit and be? Human being, not human doing. And attentiveness leads to new discoveries. What do I see now on the beach? We all see things differently as our brains interpret what we see, which is based on experience, fears, hopes, and many other things. So listen to your emotions as you look at something. They reveal your spirit and soul. Don't try to rationalize your feelings. I feel this because I've had that experience. Open your mind and listen to your feelings in a non-judgmental way. Trappist monk Thomas Merton, who wrote extensively on contemplation, and he used photography within his contemplation, described contemplation as the highest expression of our intellectual and spiritual life. It's that life itself, fully awake, fully active, fully aware that it is alive. It's spontaneous awe at the sacredness of life, of being. It's a vivid realization of the fact that life and being in us proceed from an invisible, transcendent, and infinitely abundant source. Contemplation is, above all, awareness of the reality of that source. It knows the source. Contemplation allows us to see as God has created things. And as we see, all of creation becomes wondrous and beautiful. But to use the camera for contemplation, we need to start to think a little bit, as photographers do. When something catches your attention, don't just take a quick snap and then move on, as we tend to do with our smartphones. When you notice something, pause. Spend time looking at it from different angles. Move around it. Notice where the light is coming from. Is it through a window or the direction of the sun? And as you move around, notice how the change in the direction of light changes what you see. Where are the shadows? Light illuminates. Shadows bring mystery and shape and texture. How are the shadows creating shape and texture? What are the colours you notice? How do these make you feel? How do they work together? Are they muted or bright? As our reflection draws to a close, I invite you to try this exercise with your camera. We will spend at least 10 minutes looking at just one thing. To do this, pick up your camera or smartphone, but leave it in your pocket or bag. Choose a place where you can go. I'm blessed by the sea and the glorious beaches, but often I go into the more derelict areas of the town. Maybe a room in your house. You don't have to leave your house to do this. But if you're able and would like to go outside, then perhaps a local park, your high street, a garden, an allotment, somewhere close to you. When you get to the place you've chosen to be for this exercise, close your eyes and become aware of your breathing, noticing the breaths you draw into your body and those you exhale. Become aware of the sensations of your clothes on your skin, your weight pressing into the ground you're standing on or sitting down on. Notice the feel of the wind if you're outside. Is it cold or warm? Notice the sounds and smells. Just notice them. Don't try to label them. Allow yourself to be immersed in the space, and when you're ready, open your eyes. Look at that place as if it is the first time you've seen it. When something catches your attention, get your camera out, turn it on. Spend time looking at that object. Look at it from different angles, above, the side, below. As you move around, notice how the light shapes it and changes it. Where are the shadows? Light illuminates. Shadows bring mystery, texture, and shape. So often we look without seeing, just as we can listen without hearing. How much time do we spend looking? How much time do we truly see? So as you immerse yourself in this exercise, you will see in new ways. And remember, God is within all that you see. So notice your emotions and thoughts and write these down. And as we learn to see intentionally, we discover beauty, which is an ancient name some mystics use to describe God, who's always with us. No matter where we are, beauty is never more than a step away. I invite you now to go out and use your camera or smartphone to notice things. Spend at least 10 minutes photographing just one thing before you move on to something new. Our third session will continue our journey by exploring a way we can look at the pictures we take during this exercise. So I thank you for allowing me to accompany you this on our continued journey together, and I look forward to seeing you again at our third session.